The new chief must dance naked in the ancestral shrine. Long time ago in the West African village of Mpatuntum, the chief priest of the 77 deities and gods, Okumdodow Tatahwe, was awakened from his sleep at about 4 a.m. by a strange noise in the yard of his house. Okumdodow came out from his room to check what was happening, and to his amazement, he saw a white cock lying dead on its back, with its wings spread in an awkward position. After examining the dead cock, he noticed that it was not one of his chickens. Instantly, he realized that something bad had occurred in the village which demanded consultation with the oracles in the ancestral shrine. He went back to his room and picked a bottle of a herbal concoction, and back to where the dead cock was lying. He sprinkled some of the concoction around the carcass and headed to the shrine. When he entered the shrine, Okumdodow saw a thick smoky cloud over the black ancestral stone, which every newly enstooled chief must sit on to be purified before he is finally coronated as the Chief of Mpatuntum. The smoky cloud signified that something unusual had happened to the chief of the village, Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe III. So Okumdodow rushed to the chief's palace to check on him. On reaching the gate of the palace, Okumdodow was met with another sight of a black cock lying dead in a similar state as the white one he saw in his house. He pointed his sacred staff up in the sky and started reciting some incantations. The message from the two scenes was a sign that the chief of Mpatuntum, Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe III, has joined his ancestors. A big tree has fallen. The big pot holding the village water has broken. Nana Tatahwe is dead. Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe III was 90 years old, and he had been on the throne for 70 years. He was enstooled at the age of 20 years to succeed his late uncle, Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe II, who was the chief of the village. He was a widower and lived with palace guards and helpers who stayed in different rooms close to his room. Due to his age, the palace guards and helpers kept monitoring him closely. Little did they notice that Nana Tatahwe III had passed on that night. The chief priest knocked on the gate, and the palace guards on duty opened it for him to enter the palace. He asked the leader of the palace guards to accompany him to the chief's bedroom. They found Nana Tatahwe lying in a supine position in his bed with no sign that he was dead, but when the chief priest touched his body, there was no sign of life. The body was cold. Yes, Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe III was dead. The chief priest warned the leader of the palace guards not to tell anyone about the death of Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe III, and not to allow anyone to go into the chief's bedroom. To confirm that Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe III was dead, the village chief traditional native doctor had to examine the body, so the chief priest asked one of the guards to summon the native doctor to the palace immediately. The native doctor rushed to the palace and confirmed that the village chief was dead. The chief priest warned him not to announce the chief's demise to anyone because there were some customary and traditional protocols to be followed before the death of the chief could be made public. Per the customs and tradition of Mpatuntum Village, the chief priest summoned all the 9 members of the Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe's elders and advisors, the Queen Mother, and the head of Nana Tatahwe's clan to the palace for an urgent meeting. They all proceeded to the chief's bedroom to look at the corpse, after which they went to the palace meeting hall to deliberate what had happened. They were all made to swear the oath of secrecy not to disclose the chief's death to the village folks until the appropriate customs and tradition had been observed. Meanwhile, the chief traditional native doctor was tasked to see to the embalmment and preservation of Nana Tatahwe's body. After 2 weeks of the chief's death, the village gong beater was tasked to announce for the village folks to gather at the village square for an important message from the chief and elders of the kingdom. The death of Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe III was officially announced to the village folks. Almost all the village folks were grief-stricken. Most of them wailed at the news of the chief's death. A 30-day period of mourning was declared, and on the 30th day, Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe, the third who had reigned as the traditional ruler of Mpatuntum Village, was laid to rest in the royal mausoleum. Chiefs, traditional rulers, chief priests, native doctors, and people of surrounding villages and kingdoms attended the burial of Nana Tatahwe. According to the customs and tradition of Mpatuntum Kingdom, the final funeral rites of the late chief must be held after 1 year of his death. By that time, a new chief should have been enstooled, and he was supposed to be the chief mourner for the final funeral rites. Meanwhile, the head of the chief's elders and advisors was appointed as the caretaker and acting chief of the kingdom until a new one was enthroned. After 3 months of Nana Tatahwe's burial, the process of finding his successor began. According to the customs and tradition of Mpatuntum, the successor must come from one of the 3 royal gates of the late chief's clan, the Ancestral clan, in a rotational order, namely Mpuntu, Nokwar, and Nkunyimzi gates. Nana Tatahwe was from the Nokwar royal gate, and the next gate to nominate a successor was the Nkunyimzi royal gate. The Queen Mother and the head of the Ancestral clan were to coordinate with the Nkunyimzi royal gate to find a suitable successor to be presented to the kingmakers for traditional vetting and clearance. After intense consultation within the Nkunyimzi gate, a 35-year-old prominent and a successful farmer, Abotar Nyankonton, was selected to be presented to the Queen Mother and the head of the Ancestral clan for initial approval or otherwise. According to tradition, if the Queen Mother and the clan's head accepted his nomination, he would be formally introduced to the kingmakers for vetting and approval or otherwise. On the other hand, if they did not accept his nomination, the royal gate had to nominate another person to go through the same process. Unknown to the stakeholders in the nomination and eventual enstoolment of a new chief, the Queen Mother of Mpatuntum, Bahema Araba Krape, who is from the Mpuntu royal gate, was planning to bypass the Nkunyimzi royal gate and nominate someone from her gate. Bahema Araba Krape rejected the nomination of Abotar Nyankonton, but the head of the Ancestral clan, Egya Papabi, agreed that Nyankonton was the rightful heir to the throne. The Queen Mother argued that someone from her gate must inherit the late chief with no reasonable justification. She nominated a 45-year-old rich gold merchant from her gate, Kojo Sompa, but the clan's head also rejected him. The 2 nominees were presented to the kingmakers, and Queen Mother was able to influence the majority of them with gold and other valuable materials to accept Kojo Sompa. Meanwhile, those who opposed the nomination of Sompa presented their petition to the chief priest, Okamfo Kumkumgya, who told them to exercise patience for him to consult the 77 deities for direction. After 3 days of incantations and rituals, the deities directed that Abotar Nyankonton was the chosen one, and that Kojo Sompa could not be accepted due to certain unnatural defects on his body. Mpatuntum customs had it that all males from the royal family must not be circumcised, and that any male who had been circumcised could not ascend the throne as the chief of the village. It was considered as a deformity and an abomination. When Kojo Sompa was born, his parents did not circumcise him because he was from the royal family. He did not understand why he was not circumcised, and questioned his parents about that. All his parents told him was that males from the royal family were not supposed to be circumcised. However, when he grew up, he ventured into gold trading within and around the community and interacted with people of high class in society, both males and females. During his trading escapade, he met a female friend and they fell in love, but when the woman realized that Sompa was not circumcised, she found it odd and discontinued with the relationship. Kojo Sompa was embarrassed by his situation and decided to secretly go for a circumcision and kept it away from members of the royal family. Okumdodow returned from his consultation with the deities and informed the kingmakers, queen mother, and Asempa clan head that Kojo Sompa had been rejected by the ancestors and that Abotar Nyankonton was the chosen one. He did not tell them the reason why Sompa had been rejected. Since most of the kingmakers had been bribed and influenced by the queen mother and Kojo Sompa, they rose against the chief priest. The chief priest, Okumdodow, was the person who had been ordained to perform the traditional rituals for the coronation of the new chief. And since the kingmakers had gone against the wishes of the deities and the ancestors, he agreed to go ahead with the coronation of Kojo Sompa, even though he knew Sompa would not be able to complete the rituals since he had been circumcised. Meanwhile, Okumdodow had informed Abotar Nyankonton to hold himself in readiness for the rituals because something strange was going to happen and Sompa would not be able to ascend the throne. According to Mpatuntum, customs and tradition, the new chief must dance naked in the ancestral shrine and sit on the ancestral black stone 7 times for purification and fortification against evil spirits and enemies. The day for the purification, fortification, and coronation of the new chief arrived, and all the village folks gathered at the village square to receive the new chief and pay homage to him after he had performed all the rituals and emerged from the ancestral shrine. Little did the kingmakers, the queen mother, and the village folks know that Kojo Sompa had been circumcised and was not supposed to be enstooled as the chief of Mpatuntum. Early in the morning, amidst traditional drumming and singing by the Asafo warrior group of the village, Kojo Sompa, with a piece of white cloth around his waist, was led into the ancestral shrine with only the chief priest. The chief priest poured a local brewed gin from a gourd and poured it into a calabash and said prayers to invoke the spirits of the ancestors and deities as part of the process. After that, he requested Kojo Sompa to remove the white cloth from his waist for him to be naked. Okumdodow gave him a black ancestral staff and asked him to dance around the ancestral black stone 7 times, after which he was asked to sit on the stone 7 times and repeat some incantations after the chief priest. When Kojo Sompa sat on the stone for the first time, he screamed loudly and jumped from the stone. The sound of his scream could be heard outside the shrine, and the people who had gathered at the village square wondered what was happening. He told the chief priest that he felt a burning sensation on his buttocks when he sat on the stone. The chief priest, who knew the reason for the burning sensation, recited some incantations and asked him to try again. Sompa sat on the stone for the 2nd time, and this time he felt a strong burning sensation all over his whole body and was thrown off the stone. He fell on the ground and blacked out for some seconds. When he became conscious, he ran out of the shrine naked, crying and shouting on top of his voice, and headed straight to his home. All the kingmakers, queen mother, and the village folks who had gathered at the village square saw what was happening from a distance and wondered what was going on. The chief priest, Okumdodow, emerged from the shrine and called the kingmakers, queen mother, the head of Asempa clan, and the elders to a meeting in the chief palace. He told them what had happened in the shrine and disclosed that the ancestors and the deities had rejected Kojo Sompa because he was not clean and not fit to be enstooled as the new chief of the village. Meanwhile, there were speculation and rumors among the crowd who had gathered at the village square as to what had happened. After the meeting, the chief priest addressed the crowd that the coronation of the new chief could not come on, and that a new person had to be nominated to go through the traditional rites to be enstooled as the new chief after 7 days. All concerned individuals who had a hand in the nomination of a successor to the late chief agreed that Abotar Nyankonton was the rightful candidate, and after 7 days, he went through the traditional rites of purification and fortification without any issues. With a stool name of Nana Okumdodow Tatahwe IV, he was presented to the village folks, and they all paid homage to him. End of story. Note: names of persons and places mentioned in the story are fictional and have no connection to any individual or place in real life. Stay tuned for more stories in the coming weeks. Thanks for watching or listening. Please subscribe, share, and follow.